Hello and welcome. I'm Lorianne Lumby with Authentic Freedom Academy, and this is our members only monthly teacher circle. And today is Wednesday, March 31st, 2021. And before we dive into the topic for today, let's take a few moments to arrive. So I invite you to close your eyes. Begin by drawing your awareness to your body. Being conscious of your entire physical form, perhaps beginning with a sense of the surface of your physical body. Perceiving it like an outline. Bringing your awareness along that outline. And envisioning that outline as covering all surfaces of your physical form. Becoming fully conscious of and attentive to that physical being that is you. Within and on the surface of that physical being, feeling your presence here and now. Being conscious of all the ways and places in which your physical being is in touch with the earth. The chair or couch in which you are seated. Feeling that actual sensation of physical touch. And from that place of physical touch, become aware of the sense of your body. And the space around you. Drawing your awareness to that sensation of connection between your physical form and the invisible space around you. Perhaps even feeling that weight of the atmosphere that surrounds your physical form. The air that you move through, the space that you occupy. Becoming aware of that intimate connection between your physical form and the space and physical nature around you. Becoming aware of the space that you occupy, the space that you move through. And in that conscious connection, I invite us all to rest for a few moments in silence as we allow ourselves to deepen our awareness of our presence here and now. From that place of deep connection, I invite you to listen to this message from Our Lady of Sacred Sisterhood. My beloved daughters, I manifest in spirit and in flesh. I am the love that falls from the stars and the light of the sun that gives life. I am the warmth in the hug from your dearest friend. I am the scent of the rose and the roar of the lioness. I am the tender care in the touch of your loved ones. I come to you now in physical form. I bring you the gifts of loving and being loved, of speaking and being heard. The oracle of Our Lady of Sacred Sisterhood has come to you with a special gift. It is the gift of experiencing the divine blessings and miracles of the Holy Mother in your physical life. You were born to live heaven on earth. This doesn't mean stepping away from the world with its challenges. It means applying the light of your heart to those challenges in order to see the way through them, transforming something that was perhaps once fearful, but is now drenched in love. I manifest in spirit and in flesh. I am the love that falls from the stars and the light of the sun that gives life. I am the warmth of the hug from your dearest friend. I am the scent of the rose and the roar of the lioness. I am the tender care in the touch of your loved ones. I come to you now in physical form. I bring you the gifts of loving and being loved, of speaking and being heard. As I was preparing my heart, my mind, my body, my being for our gathering this evening, I did what I always do, which is pull a card from my Mother Mary Oracle deck. And the card that I pulled was Our Lady of Sacred Sisterhood. And that could not be more appropriate for the topic of our gathering today. Our Lady of Sacred Sisterhood. And I was already instructed that I'm not supposed to apologize for my rambling today. But I know that there's going to be a little bit of rambliness, so I guess just heads up. And the reason it's rambly is because this is probably not quite fully formed. And so I'm just going to qualify our gathering with that. So to begin with, I'm very conscious of the prevalence of trickster energy in my own personal life in the last couple weeks. As everybody here knows, I was on vacation in the great upper peninsula of northern Michigan, and was in the woods with waterfalls and had some downhill skiing time, and it was just fabulous, with the one exception of slipping down a muddy incline and bruising, probably not breaking, but pretty severely bruising my ribs. And so it's been a week and a half of not even close to being healed yet, but definitely conscious of it's hard to cough, it's hard to talk, it's hard to sneeze, and the temptation to obsess about a punctured lung, which I know I don't have. So there's that. Returning from that trip, I found myself in the pits of the abyss again. And I know I'm not alone in the circle of having visited, revisited, visited again, this place of void. And in that place of void time, I'll say it this way, the void time is often accompanied with despair, sense of hopelessness, depression perhaps. And I know not to give in to them the temptations of, oh no, there's something wrong with me, blah, 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 but to enter into that darkness. And when I remembered that we were coming into Holy Week, I said, duh, of course I'm being called into the void, because where else would I go but the tomb in preparation for Holy Week? And so that's what I did. And once I arrived at that understanding that this is what this was, that it was a deep invitation to enter deeply into another tomb experience, which tomb time for me is the same as womb time, and cave time, and any other time we need to be present with the void. It's also that place of deep letting go, of entering into that awareness that we're being invited to let go of something or some things. And often we don't know what that is even. So it can be kind of a confusing, scary time, because we know we're entering into some sort of state of darkness. And if we're in the tomb, it means something's asking to die, something's being calling us to let go of it, or to release it, or be free of it. And as we all know, every time we have to let go of something, there's a sense of grief and a sense of probably anticipatory fear, especially when we don't know what that letting go is. So I allowed myself to enter into that tomb. And it's been a very interesting process in that it turned around pretty quickly. And I know that I'm not done with the tomb time, but there was an awareness that I was able to connect with as I entered very deeply into the tomb. And it broke the despair, and it broke that hopeless, depressive sort of feeling. And what came through for me feels like it's not just for me, which is why I'm bringing this to this circle. And in order to, oh yes, I heard that Holy Spirit, back to the trickster. I got rear-ended the other day, and my car's not totaled. My 3-year-old car is not totaled, but that was another little trickster fun thing, is sitting at an intersection, getting ready to turn right and have someone rear end me from behind. And, you know, the unexpected hour out of the day of having to deal with that garbage. But anyway, back to what I found in the depths of the tomb. And this goes back to about 1993 or 4, probably 94. And I was in the second semester of my first year of ministry training, and embarking on this course, Integrative Spirituality. And I don't have to say much about this course because everyone in this circle has participated in at least one, if not several, of my courses, and you know the foundational piece that makes up these processes, which is about our own contemplative prayer, our own mindfulness and meditation, and how that carries us into the path of our own transformation. How it is through that contemplation that we find our own transformation, and it is through that that we are able to complete this process of self-actualization, which, by the way, is not really ever complete. As I was taking that class and realizing, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for my whole life, is this kind of intimate connection with self. And this kind of intimate connection with what we might call God. And a process that helps carry us in our journey and helps to facilitate that process and brings us insight and guidance and awareness and knowledge and comfort and healing and discernment. A process that helps us identify what our gifts are, to come to an understanding of perhaps how we are being called to live those gifts in our life, and how we might find peace and contentment in a world that wants to be everything but that. And as soon as I got a hold of that process, I couldn't wait to share it. And the more I deepened my own practice, the more I shared that, the more I connected with others that were interested in this kind of work. And the more I came to understand the history of these processes, the more I was convinced that the world needs a different way of monastic living. Because ultimately, these practices, and the ones that I share, come from my Catholic upbringing, but they're not at all dissimilar to those that are part of the mystic Hindu traditions, the mystical Jewish traditions, Buddhism, Islam, all of these pagan traditions, all of these ancient traditions have these kinds of practices that for the most part are preserved and guarded and cared for by people that have made a commitment to sacred living. Mostly we see it as expressed through men because our world has become very patriarchal in the last several thousand years. But women have very much been a part of this tradition as well. And in my own Catholic upbringing, there's a very close connection because our teachers were men that were vowed to religious life and women that were vowed to religious life. Men and women who spent time in prayer, who studied scripture, who exercised contemplation, who practiced ritual, and who gave that practice in service to the world, living the message of love. And yet, throughout the history, at least of Christianity, but I think also Buddhism and Hinduism and some of the other ancient traditions, these practices were preserved for people that lived in a monastic kind of life. People that were unmarried, people that didn't have children, people that lived apart from society. And while that may work for some, that certainly isn't everyone's calling. And at least in the Christian expression of that, fewer and fewer people are being called to vowed religious life. And yet, more and more people are seeking a way to be in union with themselves, in relationship with the transcendent, in community with one another, and of service to the world. And these are people that are not called to a vowed, separate religious life. And most of these people are not called, nor do they have the life circumstances where they can be separate from society. We are living in and among humanity. We are living in and among our respective cultures. We have jobs. We have work in the world. We have families. We don't have the luxury to step off into a mountain sanctuary and be by ourselves as much as Lori Lumbee wishes I could do that all the time. But what we do have is the freedom to claim a monastic life, if you will, or perhaps a more contemporary term, sacred living. To claim that calling that burns within us, that calling that asks for or demands a simpler life, a gentler life, a kinder life, one that is less about the insanity of the human world beating their heads against each other, and one that is deeply rooted in our own inner process, in our own quest for peace, our own search for contentment, meaning and fulfillment, and a way to be of service to a world that may or may not want our gifts and may or may not want to change and become more loving. But in order to do that, we have to create a sanctuary within ourselves, a place where we can connect within, a place where we can find sanctuary within, comfort within, peace within, and a sanctuary in which we know that we are not alone. a sanctuary that is individual, but also in community. A place where we know that we're connecting within ourselves, but where we also know we are gathering with our sisters and brothers who have made a similar commitment to sacred living. And this is what came forth for me as I dived into the depths of the void, was this sacred space. And the invitation to cultivate that within myself, but also to extend the invitation that we build this together. Now, this is where it gets a little wacky, because having lived in a sorority in college, I have absolutely no desire whatsoever to live in physical community with other human beings other than my children. And I know people feel called to that, and God bless you, and yay, I'm so glad that there are people that want to gather in that way, but I do not. And I also have become increasingly aware that so much of this calling, as I think our mutual journeys have been unfolding, so much of what's been unfolding is not in the physical plane. It's not stuff that's being transformed or changed or altered in any sort of tangible physical way. The work that we're doing is happening on a very profound spiritual level, a place where we can feel it, where we might even be able to envision it or visualize it, but we can't really touch it. We might experience the effect of that deep inner work that we're doing, but it's not something that we can scientifically measure. So the wacky part of this temple building is that the temple that we're creating is not one of physical form. It is a temple that we are creating within our mind's eye, the nous, N-O-U-S, as Jesus refers to it in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. It's a temple that we're creating in our creative imagination, that we're building with our vision, building with our emotions, building with our intent and our feelings, and building in the way that is coming through each of us uniquely. The way in which I am envisioning my temple might be different than the way that you are envisioning yours. But as we join our intention together to create that temple, not only are we building it within ourselves, we are building it in community. And this, I believe, gives strength and purpose and form to something that we maybe have previously only held in our hearts. So this is the vision that I am putting out for us today to reflect on, to ponder. And while I was tempted to do a guided meditation of sorts to make you create a temple, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm offering an invitation. In the next few days, in the next week, in the next 2 weeks, whenever you feel called, allow yourself to enter into your own tomb space, that place of emptiness, that place of void. Allowing yourself to enter deeply into the darkness of that void, the emptiness of that void. And allowing that emptiness to draw you into a vision of or an experience of your own inner temple. What does that temple look like? What does it feel like? Are there any scents or aromas or textures that make up that temple? Where is that temple located? How is it decorated, if it is? Most importantly, how do you feel as you allow yourself to rest in, be held by, and embraced by that sacred sanctuary that is present within you, where you are one with yourself, where you are one with your ancestors, where you are one with the mother, where you are one with your understanding of the divine, where you are one with your sisters and brothers in this community, and where you are one with all of creation.